Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
I'm going to talk today about GED resources, strictly from GED Testing Service. There are a lot of Spanish language resources out there, but again, the ones that I'm going to talk about are from GED Testing Service. Here's a little bit about me. My name is Kim Gaines, and I'm the operational GED administrator for the state of Alabama. Well, what does that mean? Operational means that there is a GED administrator over the state of Alabama. That's my boss. He's the vice chancellor for adult education. And the reason I'm operational is because if you put GED or Pearson VUE in front of him, nothing will happen. So anything dealing with GED or Pearson VUE in the state of Alabama, it's going to fall in my lap. The reason he stays administrator is if there are problems, it falls in his lap. So that's a good deal right there. Okay. So for 7 years prior to coming here to the Alabama Community College system where I work now, I was the chief examiner for GED and Pearson VUE testing at Calhoun Community College. Now I did other types of testing as well, and we were even a regional ASVAB testing center. That's the test you take when you're going into the military. So I did everything from work keys to TABE, GED and Pearson VUE. Prior to that, I was a public school educator for math, and I've done quite a few different things in my life. Here's how you can reach me. You can email me at any time, kimg4747@yahoo.com. If you've got any questions or you need to contact me for any reason, follow-ups. Okay, so this webinar is in the English language because no hablo español. Okay, my Spanish, I know a lot of Spanish words, but putting them into sentences doesn't work. Okay. And by the time I learn Spanish, I will be dead. So what we want to do is we want to move forward anyway. I still want everyone to succeed despite my shortcomings. So the fact that I can't speak Spanish does not mean that I don't want to help people learn Spanish in GED. In the state of Alabama, we are not allowed to teach the GED in Spanish. So all non-English speakers, before you can even take GED classes, in many cases, if you don't know enough of the language, you have to go through ESL classes first. What a lot of our adult education teachers do is we provide our students Spanish language materials, videos. We do everything but teach the GED in Spanish. So we're going to discuss quite a few things. Yes, they can take the test in Spanish. So we're going to discuss several topics here today, not necessarily in this order. General test information. I'm not sure if I've got people on here who are not as experienced with GED testing, so I'm going to just go over some basics first. We're going to get pretty deep into the teacher stuff. We are going to talk about classroom materials, handouts, printables, etc. Moving on here. So reasoning through language arts. Let me put in this caveat. I have a very dry and weird sense of humor, and things that are funny to me are not funny to everybody. So I tend to put GIFs, memes, sometimes kind of weird stuff in my videos. Why do I do that? Because if I'm bored, everybody's bored. But anyway, reasoning through language arts. Here's the basics on that. It's a 3-part exam. So you've got some little things here: reading, writing, grammar, language. It's 2.5 hours long approximately. And you get a break between parts 2 and 3. There is a handout that they're supposed to get in the test room. If they don't get it, it is on screen. And we're going to discuss more details on that later. Okay, so social studies. Brexit did before it was cool. But social studies, they've got some reading for meaning, a lot of things you don't need to know to take the social studies test. Basically, if you can analyze things, graphs, charts, things like that. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long. There is no break. Calculator is allowed. Is the test center required to hand out calculators? No, there's an on-screen calculator for their use. So if you get a kid complaining, well, they didn't give me a calculator, so I didn't pass, there's one on your screen. There's no excuses with the calculators, okay? There's a calculator reference and formula sheet. We'll talk more about that later during the test, okay? Student can bring their own approved calculator. The calculator is the TI-30XS. We're going to talk more about that later. So the meme says, when someone insults you by saying that you have IQ of room temperature, this guy laughs in Kelvin. If you can figure out that meme, you're pretty good. Okay. So reading for meaning, a few other things, more graphics and things. About an hour and a half long. There is no break. Calculator is allowed if the student uses it or not. Calculator reference and formula sheet is the handout, or it's also on screen. Okay. If math would grow up and solve its own problems, that would be great. Okay, so mathematical reasoning. This is the one that people struggle with the most in the state of Alabama and on planet Earth. Oh my gosh, it's like math came from some other planet and we can't understand it. So I'm going to go over a couple extra math resources as well that are backed by GED, created by GED. So I know that people in Texas are struggling with math as well. Basically, the math test goes up to ninth grade level math, which in the state of Alabama is about ninth grade algebra or algebra 1. Let's go on. It's about 2 hours long. There's a 3-minute break between parts 1 and 2. The purpose of that is if a person brought their own calculator and they left it in the locker, they could go get it. Calculator reference and math formula sheet is the handout. Part 1, there is no calculator. Part 2, you get to use a calculator. Okay. Moving on. So GED test languages. Languages, Spanish and English, as I mentioned early. Okay. Can you combine those tests? Yes. You do not have to take all 4 subjects in Spanish. You do not have to take all 4 subjects in English. You can do either, or you can combine them in both the states of Texas and Alabama. You can combine those exams to get your credential. Okay. One thing I want to do, I'm going to switch back and forth to the internet, so just bear with me. We're going to look at the GED.com website first. Okay. So I wanted to show you this website. This is super important here because not a lot of people notice it. Right here in this little corner, everything you needed to know about retranslating this site into the Spanish language is right there. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Go back to English, go back to Spanish. The site is not fully translated, and I'm going to show you a weakness there in just a moment. But this gives students a lot of information in Spanish language. Okay, so again, that website can be partially translated. So here's the weakness with this is you notice if I go back to English, there's a little block right next to it. It says educators and admins. There is no educators and admins once you're translated to the Spanish language. However, a lot of Spanish resources are under educators and admins, and I will go through quite a few of those today. I'm going to run back over to my PowerPoints again. So that's how you translate the GED website, okay? And that can be extremely helpful for students. So free classroom materials, a lot of them. Get your classroom ready to go. So let's talk about the heavy stuff first. Performance level descriptors. A lot of this is teacher language. So it's the heavy stuff that you're going to find under educators and admins. It's so detailed and so thick with knowledge and big brain stuff that a lot of teachers just kind of brush right on by it and avoid it. But if you're struggling to get people over the hump, this is where you need to go, is the heavy duty stuff. There is a ton of stuff out there on Google. This particular webinar is what GED has available. But if you Google stuff, Spanish language resources, boy, you will be inundated with a lot of things. The reason I like stuff made by GED Testing Service is these are the people who made the test. They hired the psychometricians to actually build the exam. They're the ones who have built the exam and all of the resources necessary around it, most of which are in English, but a good many are in Spanish language. And if you have Spanish language or teachers who are teaching this in Spanish, they will be able to learn a lot from this. But I put a lot of the English language things in here as well, because I'm doing the webinar in English. So a lot of the Spanish stuff, I would be like a kindergartner trying to read, but it's there. So GED test performance level descriptors describe what skills test takers can demonstrate at each level. Okay, so you have 4 levels below passing. You have passing, college ready, and college ready plus credit. So let's use an example. So you have the subject of math. Okay, there's 4 subjects: math, language arts, social studies, and science. Let's use math as an example. The level that I'm using as an example is passing high school. Okay, that would be between 145 and 164. Okay, that's passing level. At that ability, students should be able to order fractions and decimals and order them on a number line. So I'm going to go to the next slide. This is where we get into detail with it. So if I go to the performance level descriptors chart, this is where all of these skills are. So for the math at a passing level, this is what people will know. They'll know how to order fractions and decimals, including on a number line. Like I said, this stuff goes very deep. But for those of you who need to get your students over the hump, this is what you're needing to get into, is some of this really deep stuff. I do not have time to go into all of it today, but it is helpful. Then there's an assessment target chart. This is what compares the official indicator code language that you get off the performance level descriptors chart with the language test takers see on their score report. So you have the language that the teachers are looking at, and you're going to have the language that students will see on their score report. It's just a side by side, not going to get deep into that. And then with the performance level descriptors, you get into a full list of all of those things. So what is the benefit of all of this, teachers? Your college and career readiness standards, your CCRSs, and you're going to be able to go line by line, because GED took those CCRSs and they made their standards based on the CCRSs, and you can literally go skill by skill in teaching your students. And if you go with those passing skills, you'll see exactly what skill level your student needs to be at, skill by skill, to pass the math or whichever subject it is on the GED. So my whole point is that those items there are in Spanish language. They're on the GED website, but they're also in my PowerPoints as well. So again, practice test has the same thing, performance level descriptors. Okay, English and Spanish are linked right on here for all 4 subjects. Here's something that's a little simpler. I wanted to show you guys, I'm going to shift gears a little bit to talk about some online tutorials students can practice with for free in English and in Espanol. Okay, so there's the computer-based tutorial. If I click the link, so I'm going to go back to the internet, and wow, this looks just like a real practice test here, and they can actually go through and practice on this. This is a very good resource. It doesn't cost you anything. It is available online. Sorry, my screen's kind of big. It moves just like the real GED test. So that is one thing that they can kind of click through. Okay. Basically, for that, what they're doing is learning what it's going to be like on the real GED, because it's not about just the test. For a lot of these students, it's getting them over that last hump. And you all know what I'm talking about, that math hump, that language hump, whatever test they happen to be struggling with. Really, what I'm sharing with you today is hopefully to get them over the hump. Now, a calculator tutorial, this is where I want to talk about the calculator. Okay, so that calculator tutorial is something that's very close to my heart. And I'll go over the calculator reference sheet very shortly because most people don't look at that in great detail, but you kind of need to. This calculator reference, if you give this to your students before they hit the test room, they will know how to deal with this. This calculator has no equals button. It has an enter button. It has navigation buttons, like look at number 7 there, that you can move around your little screen with. It has a second button that it's kind of like your shift key on your keyboard. There's a lot of things that students need to know about on this. Now, notice this little clip art here. Look under there where it says basic arithmetic. It's a little white area down there. And it says example in the blue bar. And it says 8 times -4 plus 7 equals. The correct answer is -25. Well, here's the buttons that the person needs to push on the calculator. The number 8 times. There's the negative symbol, the 4, the plus, the 7, and then they hit the enter key, and that correct answer should be -25. Okay. Few other details. I have a question for you. Okay. I have a question for you. And let's see if you can get the right answer. Is this the correct calculator for the GED test? No, that is not the right calculator. That is the TI-30XS2. Okay, that is not the correct calculator for GED testing. Your calculator is the TI-30XS. Stop right there, period. Nothing else. It is not the 2, it is just the regular TI-30XS. Why? Because GED only allows, according to the client reference, they only allow one type of calculator for the GED exam. It does look similar. Yes, it does look similar, but it is not the right calculator. The 30XS2, it's got some functions on there that GED does not want people trying to use on the regular test. But there is only one type of calculator allowed on the GED test. If a test center does not have that calculator, again, the student can actually access that same calculator on screen for everything except for the language arts test and for part 1 of the math. For all other parts of the GED test, they can access that. I'm going to forward here on this because I saw something I'm going to talk about later on, and I might as well show you on here. So the AE symbol, I don't know how to pronounce this symbol. I'm going to call it the AE. So the AE symbol is available during the math, science, and social studies tests. This symbol will allow you to do some things that normal keyboards cannot do. For example, the Enya, the N with the tilde, if you're in the language arts section, you can click that and you're on the Spanish test, you can get that symbol. You can get other math symbols. So like the greater than symbol, if you look down below. So there's certain symbols that a regular keyboard that we use during the test can't do. But this AE symbol will allow a student to actually do those, okay? So I'll come across that later and we'll talk more about those things later. So those same tutorials, for those of you who teach in corrections, because a lot of prisons and jails, you cannot access internet. And if you can access internet, it's not very good. A lot of stuff is blocked. You may struggle with some things. But if you're doing corrections or institutional testing of any kind and you're having internet problems, those same tutorials that I just showed you are downloadable. So you also have a downloadable math practice test, downloadable RLA tests, et cetera, et cetera. Just FYI, the links are there. Again, I got all of these links off of the GED.com site. A lot of this stuff is under educators and admins. Now, here's where I wanted to talk more about the reference sheets. And you see up in my picture there, that little 8 times -4 plus 7. These reference sheets are available on GED.com, or you can just Google them, calculator reference sheet for GED, GED math formula sheet. You can get these at any time. You can print them out. You can give them to your students. It is critical, especially for the math students, that they know how to use that calculator and that they understand the math formula sheet. So I'm going to switch again and show you the math formula sheet. So this math formula sheet, I want you to look at it very carefully. It contains formulas that students may need to pass the math test. They don't have to remember the formulas. If you go through with your students and help them to understand and work problems using each of these, not just on paper, but with a calculator, how to solve each of these problems before they hit the test room. They need to be so familiar with calculators, formula sheets, and the language arts reference sheet that they will be able to take area equals 1/2 times height times base 1 plus base 2 and be able to solve that using a GED calculator. Can your students solve circumference of a circle using the TI-30XS calculator? Can they solve a rectangular prism problem? And this is what the student is handed in the test room. You can literally go down this list, help your students solve these math problems using the calculator, not just solve the problems, solve them with the calculator. What button do I push to solve such and such a problem? Median and mean. Do they understand? Now, mode and range are not on this formula sheet, and that is something that they may also need to know, if not for a test in life. But median and mean are on here. Can you go through and make sure your student understands the definition of those and how to calculate them? Can they do the quadratic formula? Can they do simple interest, etc.? Okay. Super, super important things. While I'm here, I'm just going to go on and pull up a calculator reference sheet. Okay. So for basic arithmetic, here's how you answer those. These are the buttons you push. I mean, they literally give you the buttons to push. Have them solve these problems on this calculator reference sheet. Percentages, can you solve a percentage problem? Scientific notation. These are the buttons you push. A lot of times you don't have to remember things. Okay, biggie, fractions. Oh my God, I don't have to remember how to simplify a fraction. Are you serious? My calculator will do it for me. I don't have to remember all the mixed number rules. My calculator will do it for me. Wow. And it's on a thing that they hand me in the test room. I did not know that. The cubed root of 1728. So this is stuff that students should be getting in the classroom before they get to that test room, and that will be such a huge help for them. All right, so those are the reference sheets. Now here's the links for them in Spanish, okay? Make sure your test administrators, if they do not know that, they need to shoot me an email so that they'll know, because all test administrators have all of these things in Spanish as well. And when your students hit the test room to take a Spanish language test, they don't need to be getting English language stuff. If they're taking that Spanish language test, when they come to check in to be admitted for the test, that test administrator can see on the screen that that is going to be a Spanish language test. Every single action that they take after that needs to be in Spanish language. So they hand them a candidate rules document in Spanish. The person reads it, they sign it, they take them to the lockers and restrooms, whatever they need to do. When they hit that test room, they should be getting these handouts in Spanish. Raynina says, good to remember that the letters used in the math formulas may not be the letter of the word in Spanish, like S, side, might be L, lado. You are correct. And that's why your students can do instruction in Spanish. All right, I'm going to move forward. Talking about extended response scoring tools. This is one of the most fascinating, ingenious, yet simple to use tools that I have seen. If you have used the extended response scoring tool for the extended response part of the practice test for RLA. So for those who have not seen this before, let's go here. Again, I have put Spanish and English language resources on here. So let's look at the extended response scoring tools. By the way, how many of you did not know that an algorithm or computer system does not score the language arts part of the practice test? That a teacher has to score that. So when you get a practice test score for language arts practice back, it does not include any type of score for the extended response portion. Well, Kim, what are you saying? I'm saying that when students type that essay in the practice test, nothing gets graded. Well, why in the world would I have my student do that in the first place? You're about to see why. Number one reason is that a teacher needs to know some things about the language arts test, the real one. First of all, yes, it is possible to pass that test without ever writing anything. Have you done your students a disservice? Yes, kinda. It is possible to complete that practice test. Students don't write anything on it. The score you get back does not include anything for the writing anyway. Well, why in the world would I have my student do it? Because number one, teachers need to know how to get their students to get points on that extended response. There is a reason that teachers need to know this. First of all, how are you going to teach your student the writing portion of the test and writing in general without you knowing in full detail how to get your student through? So Angie says, even students that have college degrees and are excellent in writing do not score any points on the Spanish extended response. You are absolutely right. So what happens when you get these things? First of all, you go to the original source, which is GED.com. If you have continuous failure on a portion of a test, student after student, that means that GED is looking for specific things on that test, specific responses. By the way, did you know you can challenge those responses? There is a fee. So you can appeal it. You can say, okay, I think my student should have got more response, or my student says they should have got points on that essay. And I think they should have gotten points as well. And so GED says, yeah, you can challenge it. We're going to charge you $50 to challenge it. But if we have a human score this thing and you are right that you should have had points on there, we will refund your $50. But if you're wrong, we're keeping your money. Okay. So just know that, yes, you can appeal, but likely it will cost you. So we got to find out why person after person is failing the written part of the math test. The best way to find out is to go to these links here. Okay. First of all, let's look at some quick tips. So we got to find out what exactly are they looking for. I'm not going to go deep into what they're looking for. I'm going to show you, however, what GED says about getting these. By the way, if the person pays $50 and they still think they should get that, contact your state relationship manager. I'm not sure who your person is, but I talk to mine just about every day, and she's probably sick of me, but I need to know these things. I have questions. Why are these things not happening? So there's some extended response quick tips. All right. So GED says, do this, do this, do this. Okay. Try to save 4 to 5 minutes, quickly proofread, so on and so forth. Is that all they have to say about it? Absolutely not. I'm going to show you another thing that has some stuff. Did you all know that GED has its own YouTube channel? And on that YouTube channel, when you get there, this is what you're looking for here, the GED logo. You click that logo and you're on the GED. So GED has its own YouTube channel. Everything you wanted to know about the test. They have so many videos on here. It's not even funny. They have stuff from international. They have students who tell all of their stories. If you need students to be encouraged on getting on through the GED, they've got it for you. Here's GED Works for people who are working and getting the GED through their jobs. Okay. Now, notice here the home. Then there's videos, all the videos you can stomach. Okay. All kinds of stuff. Well, Kim, how in the world am I going to find specifically what I need on there? Now, I'm already on the GED channel. And earlier, you see what I just did there? If I go all the way to this little search thing here, click the little thing, and I can put in language arts. And when I hit enter on this little search box, they give me a boatload of language arts stuff. Okay. Stuff for teachers. Here's a whole webinar teacher. That's one of their Tuesdays for teachers. Here's all of the stuff that you ever wanted to know about language arts, and GED. But it's published from GED, by GED, GED skills gaps, why students are struggling. Now, all of these, let me go back up because we're looking only for language arts, okay? So there's a lot of stuff. Remember, I'm in the little search box here. I can put in math, and I'm going to get more math stuff, okay? Here's a calculator video. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a link to the Spanish language calculator tutorial video that's in my PowerPoints as well. Conquer the math section. Conquer it, not just sit there and hover, conquer it. Now, what I was talking about was this extended response scoring tool. So let's go look at the scoring tool. And this is how teachers can learn how to teach their students. See right here, now all of this other stuff is there, English and Spanish. But right now, I want to look at the scoring tool. So how to use this tool. You're going to download the prompts and passages used in the GED Ready. Well, Kim, you mean to tell me that they have all of the prompts that are in the GED Ready practice tests here? You better believe it. So watch this. So they give you the actual essays. You can print these out and go over them with your students, okay? I'm on this scoring tool page here, and I'm on this little thing right here. It says the third one down, scoring tool for the GED Ready practice test. I click that, and it opens up the scoring tool. And so what I was showing you is that GED gives you the prompts and the passages that are on the GED Ready tests, okay? So stimulus material, diamond mining. Let's go look and see what else they got. Here's the prompt. While opponents of diamond mining believe, da, 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 da. This is what your student's gonna see. Here's another prompt, plastic bags. I mean the essay, okay? Now here's the prompt that they're gonna see, okay? So they give you what's actually on those practice tests. Now watch this. Once you, teacher, are familiar with the practice tests and the prompts, you can actually have your student write the essay in class to kind of go over it with them. You can wait till they do it on the practice test. And then when you get their score report, their answer is fully printed out on the score report. Okay, let me say that again. When the student writes the essay on the practice test, when they get their score report, their response is on there. So teacher, what do? You take the prompt that they read and you match it up with their response. And then you go to this tool here. Now you're going to put in some information. And my husband got his GED in the state of Alabama, and he never minds me using him as an example for anything, because not only was he a GED student, he was also an accommodation student. So myself and my team, we learned a lot about accommodations and how to process those, how to get a reader and recorder brought in because of his dyslexia. And one of my assistants tested him, and he passed every test on the first try. So that's a whole other story. That's part of my GED accommodations webinar. But let's look at one of his scores. Now remember, this is using this extended response scoring tool for the practice test. They want you to put in the student's name and the date that they took that practice test. So I'm going to put in 4/9/2018. Now I'm going to start scoring, and I'm going to look at the rubric. They have it in here. Did he clearly state claims or not applicable? At least one clearly stated or strongly implied claim. Basically, I go through and I make my pick, my judgment based on this rubric, how he did on his practice test. Now, analyzing the issue, some more instructions. Did he do this? How was this? How was that? So raw total is 1, trait total 1. Click the next button. How did he do here? And this part is for ideas that are well developed, logical, and elaborated. How did he do here? Well, Kim, I don't understand what they're saying in the purple sections. I don't understand what logical, well developed, elaborated. I went to school 50 years ago and I just don't remember all of this stuff. That's where you go to the webinar that I just showed you on YouTube so that they can explain a lot of these things. Establishes and maintains a formal style. so on and so forth. Then they go to part 3, on and on and on. And when you finish, you're going to get a score. So again, for the sake of time, I'm cutting that short. Remember, you have that in Spanish as well to go through. All right, I'm going to shift and go back to my other screen. Taking the angst out of scoring the GED RLA extended response. Here's some more resources for that. All right, now I added these. There was an annotated rubric for Spanish, but for the other 3 down at the bottom, those were not on there. So just some more resources for language arts. I went over this earlier with the AE symbol. Educator guides, an overview of GED test content. Okay, these are educator handbooks. If you get a new educator, the first thing you're going to want to hand them before they sit down, you're going to want to hand them the educator handbook. All you need to know about GED testing in general. Then there is a test taker brochure. And again, I am kind of pushing this on through. I have the links in here. They are also all on GED. There's a GED playbook. A couple things did not have Spanish version of those. Okay. Essential resources for math. So this is super important here. The calculator prohibited indicators. Kim, what does that mean? That is the first part of the math test. And what they want you to do is they want you to go through these items with your students so that you all will know how to answer those without a calculator. Okay, that's an essential resource. Now, tips for earning high school equivalency. These are the things that you are going to want to seriously dig deep on. Okay. Remember, I'm not talking about stuff for the most part that is for people just starting the GED test. Much of this is for getting your students over the hump. Okay. And as a matter of fact, once you get people over the hump, you'll know how to get them started. The people that come in fresh and are just starting their GED, you're going to be able to get them over the hump. Now, here's the on-screen calculator. But if you notice, this is the Spanish language version of the calculator tutorial and reference. On GED Manager is the student test activity report. The only thing you're going to find that is Spanish language in GED Manager is if you go under reporting and you pull a student test activity report. If you want to find out which students who tested in Spanish on a certain date range who may be struggling to pass a final test, or whatever your issue is, you may want to use GED Manager to find that. Now, here's something else that we're using here in Alabama, and you all may use it as well. If you have under reporting, and it depends on your level of GED Manager, if you have a higher GED Manager access, you may have access to GED Analytics. I'm a state manager, so I have access to GED Analytics. We have a report that GED has given us in Analytics that I click one button and I can see all of the people who have passed 3 of the 4 exams. That's something that we're using here. If you need to get with your state relationship manager and ask for a 3 of 4 report. High impact indicators, okay? Improving student performance. These are over the hump things, okay? HIIs, high impact indicators. Relationships across content areas, that's contextual, things that are going to help in both the math test and the science test and the social studies test. Is there an online Spanish test? Yes. Okay. Yes, there is. The full experience should be in Spanish. Okay. How do you test online? You can go to GED.com, and when you go in your students portal, they will be given the choice and information on testing. Also, I put a video in here for that as well. Okay, you can schedule any of the subjects in Spanish. There's some GED Spanish prep written by Spanish instructors. It is contextualized. It is self-paced instruction. This is something you got to pay for. I don't know if your state has it, but you can track their information. Spanish language registration for GED testing, a brochure in Spanish. Here's an entire webinar. Yes, there are Spanish language resources. I put the link, some printable flyers that you can hand out to your students, and they are customizable, so you can actually put your program information on there. I love these study guides because they're printable. And they are something that every teacher needs to go through these, I mean, literally problem by problem with the students. Again, here I am. My name is Kim Gaines. You can reach me at kimg4747@yahoo.com. Do I have all the answers? No, but boy, do I try to find out where those answers are. If you need to reach me, you have questions, I can likely get you in touch with your state relationship manager. There may be things that I'm able to answer. I'm going to end there. I thank you so much for your time.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCall continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.